All right, everybody, let's jump right into it. Today, we're going to try to get to the bottom of this question. Does Home Depot build decks?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, you see them there. They got all the lumber, all the materials.
Right, everything.
Do they actually build decks?
That is the question.
So if you're out there and you're thinking about building a deck, maybe you're just curious, or maybe you're actually planning a project. This deep dive is for you.
Absolutely.
We're looking at an article today from Green Exterior Remodeling.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of them.
They're a company down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And they've got a great reputation for building decks.
Really good reputation.
So let's see what they have to say about this. Does Home Depot build decks? Question.
I'm interested to hear this.
So to start off, I think we should just address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The short answer
Really on
to the does Home Depot build decks question is no.
Okay, so no, they don't actually send out a crew
Exactly.
to your house.
Yeah, they don't have Home Depot branded trucks that roll up
Right.
with, a crew of guys ready to build your deck.
Got it.
So that's the simple answer.
All right, so does Home Depot build decks? No.
But it's a little more complicated than that.
I figured.
Because they do have a role in the deck building process.
Yeah, what do they do?
It's like you go to the grocery store.
Right.
They got all the ingredients for a cake,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't actually bake the cake for you.
Yeah, you got to do that yourself.
So in a similar way, Home Depot's like a giant warehouse full of deck building possibilities.
I like that. Yeah, like a supermarket for decking.
Yeah.
You got your lumber, your composite materials, railings.
All under one roof,
Yeah, they have it all.
but they don't actually assemble it for you.
Okay, but they have all the pieces.
They have all the pieces.
So then how do they help?
Well, they do have this program called Home Services.
Home services. Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so this is where it gets a little interesting.
So does Home Depot build decks using home services?
Not exactly.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So Home Services, it's not actually a deck building service.
Oh, really?
It's more like a matchmaking service.
Interesting. So like a dating app, but for decks.
Kind of. Yeah, so they connect you with local contractors.
Okay, so they're kind of like the middleman.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're looking to hire a pro to build your deck, Home Depot can help you find someone.
So does Home Depot build decks through these contractors, or is it totally separate?
It's totally separate. They just make the connection.
Okay, so they're just playing matchmaker.
Exactly.
All right, so that brings us to a big decision point then, right? DIY or hire a pro.
Yeah, that's the big question.
If you're thinking about building a deck.
So, if you're the kind of person who loves a good DIY project,
Right, loves to get their hands dirty.
Home Depot can definitely supply you with everything you need.
Right, you can get all your materials there.
Yeah, but if you're thinking, maybe I'd rather leave this to the professionals,
Mm-hmm.
Home Services can help you find someone.
Okay, so it really caters to both paths.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And, whether you go DIY or pro, I think the article makes a really good point.
What's that?
Always get multiple quotes.
That's good advice. Yeah, don't just go with the first person you talk to.
Right, and check reviews.
Yeah, see what other people are saying.
So do your research.
A little research goes a long way.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've talked about Home Depot's role, but the article also mentions green exterior remodeling as an alternative.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
What do you mean?
Well, it seems like they're highlighting a local specialist.
Right, instead of just another big chain.
Yeah, and I think that suggests there's real value in considering companies that are, maybe a little more focused.
Yeah, maybe they have more expertise
Exactly.
in deck building specifically.
Right. So, if you're in the Charlotte area,
Mm-hmm.
Green Exterior Modeling might be worth checking out.
It sounds like it.
Plus, you got to admire their confidence.
How so?
I mean, they wrote an article titled, Does Home Depot Build Decks?
Yeah, they're not shying away from the competition.
They're not afraid to address the elephant in the room.
I like that.
All right, so we've established that Home Depot doesn't actually build the decks,
Right.
but they do offer a ton of different materials.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
I mean, the article mentions composite decking,
Mm-hmm.
pressure-treated lumber,
Right.
all kinds of railing style.
Tons of options.
It's really overwhelming.
Yeah, how do you even choose?
I know, right?
So does Home Depot build decks using all these different materials? I mean, do they have experience with all of them?
Well, again, they don't actually do the building.
Right,
But
right.
they do offer a huge selection.
Okay, so it's up to the homeowner or the contractor to decide what to use.
Exactly. And that's where things can get really interesting because each material has its own pros and cons.
Yeah, like what?
Well, take composite decking, for example.
Okay, composite decking. Does Home Depot build decks using that material?
Remember, they don't build the decks,
Right, of course.
but they do sell composite decking.
Okay, so what's the deal with composite decking?
Well, it's become really popular in recent years
Yeah, why is that?
because it's super low maintenance.
Really?
Yeah, it's made from this blend of wood fibers and plastic,
Interesting.
so it's resistant to rot, insects fading.
So it's like the superhero of decking materials.
Pretty much, yeah. It's designed to last a long time and look good without a lot of upkeep.
That sounds pretty appealing.
Yeah, it's definitely tempting.
But I'm guessing there's got to be a downside, right?
Well, of course, there's always a trade-off.
What is it?
composite decking to be pricier up front.
Oh, okay, so it costs more than traditional lumber.
Exactly, and some people just prefer the look and feel of real wood.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, it's really a matter of personal preference.
Right, some people want that classic wood aesthetic.
Exactly.
So does Home Depot build decks with traditional lumber too?
Again, they don't build the decks,
Right.
but they do sell lumber.
Okay, and what kind of lumber are we talking about?
Well, the article specifically mentions pressure-treated lumber.
Pressure-treated lumber. Okay, so that's the kind that's been treated to resist rot and insects, right?
Exactly.
And it's more affordable than composite?
Yes,
But
definitely.
it probably requires more maintenance?
Yeah, that's the
So
point.
you got to seal it and stain it regularly.
Exactly.
All right, so composite decking, low maintenance but more expensive. Pressure-treated lumber, more affordable but higher maintenance.
Right. It's all about finding the right balance for your needs and your budget.
Makes sense.
And then, of course, there are the railings.
Oh, yeah, the railings.
I mean, have you seen the selection at Home Depot?
It's crazy, right? So many options.
I know you got classic wood railings, sleek aluminum, modern cable railing.
It's like a railing fashion show.
I know, right? So does Home Depot build decks with all these different railing styles? I mean, do they have a favorite?
Well, you know the answer to that.
They don't build the decks.
Right.
But they do offer all the options.
They do. They have everything.
So you can really customize your deck to match your style.
That's cool. So even though Home Depot doesn't build decks, they give you all the tools to create your dream deck.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk more about this home services thing.
Yeah, how does that actually work?
Well, think of it like this Home Depot has this network of contractors,
Okay.
and they've all been vetted by Home Depot.
So they've gone through some kind of screening process
Exactly.
to make sure they're, legit.
Right. They have to meet certain criteria like licensing, insurance, background checks.
So there's some quality control there.
Yeah, they're not just letting anybody into this network.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about using home services to find a contractor for your deck project, here's how it works.
Okay.
You can either go online to the Home Depot website,
Right.
or you can go to a store and talk to someone at the service desk.
Okay.
And they'll ask you about your project.
Like what kind of deck I want.
Exactly, size, style, materials, budget, timeline, the whole 9 yards.
So does Home Depot build decks based on that information?
Not exactly.
Like-
They take all that information you give them,
Mm-hmm.
and they use it to match you with contractors in their network.
So they're like a matchmaking service.
Yeah, exactly. They're playing Cupid
But for decks.
for decks.
All right. So they find a few potential matches.
Right.
And then what?
Then they give you the contractor's contact information.
Okay.
And you can reach out to them directly.
So I talk to the contractors myself.
Yeah, you schedule consultations, get quotes.
Compare prices.
Exactly. And ultimately, you choose who you want to work with.
So Home Depot's not involved in that final decision.
Nope, they just make the introduction.
Okay. So once I've chosen a contractor, does Home Depot build decks with that contractor? Or are they completely out of the picture?
They're out of the picture.
So the contractor handles everything from there.
Yep, design permits, materials, construction, the whole shebang.
Okay, so it's important to remember that even though you're going through Home Depot, you're really hiring an independent contractor.
That's a good point.
So what are some of the pros and cons of using home services versus, finding a contractor on my own?
Well, one of the big pros is convenience.
How so?
Home Depot does a lot of the legwork for you.
Like vetting the contractors.
Right.
Gathering information.
Yeah, narrowing down the options.
So it saves me time.
Exactly, especially if you're busy and you don't have a lot of time to research contractors.
That makes sense.
And, Home Depot has a reputation to uphold, so they have an incentive to make sure the contractors in their network are good.
Right. They don't want to be associated with bad contractors.
Exactly, so there's a certain level of trust there.
Okay, so convenience and trust, those are two big pros.
What about cons? Are there any downsides?
Yeah. I mean, it can't all be rainbows and sunshine.
Well, one potential downside is the limited pool of contractors.
How so?
They're working with a specific network.
Okay.
So it's possible that there are some great contractors out there who aren't part of Home Depot's network.
So I might miss out on some hidden gems?
It's possible.
Okay, what else?
Another potential downside is the cost.
How so?
Well, Home Depot takes a cut from the contractors in their network.
Really?
Yeah, so it's possible that you might end up paying a bit more.
To cover that cut?
Right, so it's a trade-off.
Convenience versus cost.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And of course, there's always the option of going directly to a specialist like Green Exterior Remodeling. We're
Right.
going to have a lot of experience with ducts.
It's their specialty.
Exactly. So if you have a really complex project or you're looking for something really unique, a specialist might be a better choice.
Okay, so it sounds like choosing the right path really depends on my specific needs and my budget.
Yeah, exactly. There's no one right answer.
So let's say I've decided on a contractor, whether it's through home services or on my own. What are some things I should keep in mind before I sign a contract?
Well, communication is key.
Okay.
You want a contractor who listens to you, understands your vision, and keeps you informed throughout the process.
Right. I don't want any surprises.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions
Like what?
about their experience, their design process, their problem-solving skills, their timeline, their payment schedule, everything.
So I should treat it like a job interview.
Pretty much, yeah. You're hiring them to build your dream deck.
That's a good point.
And at the end of the day, trust your gut.
Mm-hmm.
If something feels off or you're not quite comfortable with the contractor,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to walk away.
Okay, so communication, transparency, and a good gut feeling. Those are the keys.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to decking materials. We've talked about composite decking and pressure-treated lumber,
Right.
but there's a whole world of options out there.
Oh, yeah.
So what else is there?
Well, you've got your classic wood options like cedar and redwood.
Ooh, cedar and redwood. Those sound fancy.
They're beautiful and durable.
They have that rot-resistant thing like pressure-treated lumber?
They do have some natural resistance,
Okay.
but they still need regular maintenance.
And are they expensive?
They tend to be more expensive than pressure-treated lumber.
But again, it's a trade-off, beauty versus cost and maintenance.
Exactly.
What about exotic hardwoods? I've heard about those.
Oh, yeah, like ipe and tigerwood.
What are those?
They're incredibly dense and durable,
Okay.
and they have these really rich colors and unique grain patterns.
They sound expensive,
They're definitely a splurge.
but I bet they look amazing.
Oh, yeah, they're stunning.
So if I want a really high-end deck, exotic hardwoods are the way to go.
They're definitely a statement.
But for the average homeowner,
Right.
probably sticking with pressure-treated lumber or composite.
Yeah, those are more budget-friendly.
Okay, so even within those categories, there are lots of choices.
Oh, yeah, tons of different brands, colors, textures.
It's overwhelming.
It can be.
Any advice for navigating that maze of decking materials?
Ask for help.
Okay,
The people who work in the lumber department at Home Depot,
yeah.
they can be really helpful.
So I should pick their brains.
Yeah, ask them questions, tell them about your project.
Okay.
They can help you narrow down your options.
That's a good tip.
And speaking of experts,
Yes.
what about going directly to a specialist like Green Exterior Remodeling?
Right.
They're going to have a ton of experience with decks.
It's all they do.
Yeah, so they're going to know all the ins and outs of different materials.
Okay, but what about the cost?
Well, it depends.
On what?
The complexity of the project, the materials you choose, the contractor's rates.
So it could be more expensive.
It could be, but not always.
So I should get multiple quotes,
Always a good idea.
whether I'm going through home services or directly to a specialist.
Absolutely.
Okay, before we wrap up,
Yeah.
I want to emphasize the importance of research.
Research is key.
So if you're thinking about building a deck,
Mm-hmm.
what are the top 3 things you should research?
Number 1, material options.
Okay,
There are so many out there.
right.
So really take the time to learn about the pros and cons of each one.
Got it. What's number 2?
Number 2, DIY versus pro.
Okay,
Honestly, assess your skills, your time, and your budget.
so figure out if I'm up for the challenge.
Exactly.
And number 3,
Find inspiration.
okay,
Look at pictures of decks, browse online design galleries.
get some ideas.
Yeah, get a sense of what you like.
Love it.
All right, so you've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we have.
Does Home Depot build decks? The answer is no.
But they do play a big role in the deck building process.
Right. They provide the materials, the connections, and the inspiration.
So they're like the sous chef.
Yeah, I like that.
They help you prep all the ingredients.
But you're the head chef.
Or you can hire a head chef.
Right.
If you're not feeling up to the task. So to our listeners out there,
Yes.
as you embark on your deck building journey,
Mm-hmm.
remember to do your research,
Yes.
explore your options,
Right.
and choose the path that's right for you. And most importantly,
Yes.
have fun.
Building a deck is a big project.
It is.
But it should also be enjoyable.
So enjoy the process.
And enjoy your new deck.
That's great advice.
Thanks.
All right, everybody, thanks for tuning into this deep dive into the world of deck building.
It's been fun.
And until next time, happy decking. Okay, so we're back and we're ready to talk about all the other decking material options out there.
Yeah, because, I mean, we've talked about composite and pressure-treated lumber.
Right, but there's a whole world beyond that.
Like, what else is there? I mean, does Home Depot build decks with, like, I don't know, bamboo or something?
Well, I don't think they're building decks with bamboo, but they do have some other interesting wood options.
Like what?
Well, you've got your classic woods like cedar and redwood.
Oh, yeah, cedar and redwood. I love the smell of cedar.
Yeah, they're beautiful, and they're known for being really durable.
But did they have that, like, rot resistance thing, like pressure-treated lumber?
They do have some natural resistance to rotten insects.
Okay, so they're not totally helpless.
Right, but they still need regular maintenance if you want them to last.
And are they expensive?
They tend to be a bit pricier than pressure-treated lumber, yeah.
So it's another one of those trade-offs.
You get that gorgeous natural look, but you got to put in the work to keep it looking good.
Okay, what about those exotic hardwoods I've heard about, like ipe or tigerwood?
Yeah, they have those too.
Does Home Depot build decks with those?
Yeah, well, again, they don't actually build the decks.
Right, right.
But they do offer some exotic hardwood options.
Okay, so what's the deal with those?
They're incredibly dense and durable.
Okay.
and they have these really rich colors and unique grain patterns.
So they're like the luxury cars of decking materials.
I guess you could say that, yeah.
They probably cost a fortune.
They're definitely a splurge.
But they're beautiful.
Oh, yeah, they're stunning.
So if you're looking to make a statement with your deck,
Mm-hmm.
exotic hardwoods might be the way to go.
But for us mere mortals with regular budgets,
Right.
we're probably sticking with pressure-treated lumber or composite.
Okay, so even within those categories, there are like a million choices.
It's true. There are different brands, different colors, different textures.
How do you even choose?
It's overwhelming, right?
Totally, I'd be lost in that aisle.
Well, my advice is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
The people who work in the lumber department at Home Depot,
Mm-hmm.
they're actually really knowledgeable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they can answer your questions. They can point you in the right direction.
So I should just grill them with all my decking dilemmas.
Pretty much, yeah. They're a great resource.
Okay, good to know.
And, speaking of resources, we've talked a lot about Home Depot's role in the deck building process.
Right.
But what about going directly to a specialist like Green Exterior Remodeling?
Yeah, they're the deck experts.
Right, they eat, sleep, and breathe decks.
So they're going to have a lot of experience with different materials, different designs.
Exactly, and they might have some really creative ideas that you wouldn't have thought of on your own.
Okay, but is it going to cost me an arm and a leg to hire a specialist?
Well, it could be more expensive, but it's not always the case.
Okay.
The best thing to do is get multiple quotes,
Right, compare prices.
whether you're considering home services or a specialist.
Makes sense.
All right, so before we wrap up this deep dive into the world of deck building,
Mm-hmm.
I want to reiterate one very important point.
What's that?
Research.
Research? Research?
It's so important.
Yeah, you got to do your homework.
So if you're thinking about building a deck,
Mm-hmm.
here are your top 3 research priorities.
Bring it on.
Number 1, material options. We've talked about a few, but there are so many out there.
It's mind-boggling.
So take the time to learn about the pros and cons, the costs, the maintenance requirements of each material before you make a decision.
Okay, got it. What's number 2?
Number 2, DIY versus pro.
All right.
Be honest with yourself about your skills, your time availability, and your budget.
Right. Can I really handle this myself, or should I call in the pros?
Exactly. And number 3,
Drum roll, please.
find inspiration.
Ooh, I like that one.
Look at pictures of decks, browse online design galleries, visit showrooms.
Get those creative juices flowing.
Exactly. Figure out what's possible, what fits your style.
That's fun.
It is fun.
Okay, so we've reached the end of our deck building journey.
We have, and I think we've answered the big question.
Does Home Depot build decks?
The answer is no,
Not directly, anyway, right?
but they do play a big role in making those deck dreams a reality.
They're like the fairy godmother of deck building.
I love that analogy,
They give you the tools and the guidance.
but ultimately it's up to you to create the magic.
Beautiful.
So all our listeners out there, happy decking.
Yes.